Welcome to Life Fits with the DVD. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. Today, I wanted to talk about the culture of victimization that we live in. And what I mean by that is when you look outside of yourself into the world, you see a lot of victimization that takes place. This is all over social media, it is on the news. It happens when you talk to your coworkers or your family members or friends, right? Anytime that you see people that are being, harmed, feeling helpless, weak, uh, where they look like the victim, right? Or are making themselves the victim, that promotes this culture of victimization, which is a frequency that we all live in, right? It's very hard to avoid this unless you are living within a community that really doesn't associate with the outside world very much. This culture of victimization is pretty much everywhere. It's so present in our Western society nowadays that my theory is that it has dissolved and been absorbed into our consciousness in a way that does not serve us on any level. And I wanted to dig into this a little bit more because my last two videos were the battles within the mind, the drama within your head, and this one I wanted to focus on the victimization cult, or however you want to look at it, in that this frequency, this, when you look out and you see, people, oh, woe is me, whatever, right? And not only that, you see the people complaining about things, blaming on social media. You look at the news and you see how, oh, another stabbing or shooting has happened today. And it's literally the worst possible news that you could even, on a personal level, the worst possible news that you could possibly be looking at and, allowing yourself to absorb, right? And when I say absorb, I mean absorb because frequently when we turn on the TV or go to social media at the end of the day, we aren't thinking. We are not consciously thinking about our choices. We've let our guard down. Often, we lay down on the couch or, sit on the toilet or whatever and look at your phone. You look at the news and you just don't want to think. You have shut things out. And what does it do? Well, it entertains your mind with these emotional experiences of victimization. And I say this is victimization because there's two ways to look at the victimization. One, you're either blaming somebody else, you feel anger towards a situation, what somebody else did, what you experienced because of somebody else, and you're externalizing that and blaming them. Or you're taking that and instead of reacting to it, the expression of that is more of a reaction into the external world and being angry. The alternative to that is internalizing it and feeling guilty about whatever that you experienced, which is another form of victimization. So you you feel like the victim and you're mad, or you feel like the victim and you're like, I should have done better, right? So these are just two different forms of victimization. It can be, blame, guilt on the internal level, but yeah, anger, blame on the external side. And there's a lot of victim shaming that happens too from these two expressions of it. You might see somebody else or something bad has happened to them and think, oh, they should have known better, right? Why didn't they know better? Why didn't they listen to the authorities or the parents or the teachers or the, whatever person is supposed to be in charge of that situation, right? Or, you can look at it the other way and it can be externalized of why isn't somebody doing something about this? Why, don't these people have consciences? So it's almost like a reverse of the actual internalizing or externalization. But ultimately, what it comes down to is we're doing this process of victimization all the time, complaining about things, whether it's external to somebody else, talking about something, venting. If you're venting about something, you're looking at yourself as a victim in a sense. And if you are, if you're just venting internally, dwelling, ruminating on something in your head, and you're trying to work it out, right? But you can't come to a conclusion, and it just keeps repeating over and over in your head. Well, that's another form of complaining, and that internalization of it, that you've become a victim again. So ultimately, we want to get to a place where we realize that we are not the victim. We are very much in control of any and every situation in our lives. Now, this is kind of a hard concept to wrap your mind around, especially if you're stuck in this victimization pattern, because, well, how do you reframe that? How could you possibly think that we're not the victim in certain circumstances? Well, in certain circumstances, yes, we may be a victim, based on the regular definition of it. However, it is our interpretation and the meaning that we assign to that situation that can take us out of the victimization that we, bestow upon ourselves or others, right? So we need to frame things differently to where the meaning of a situation is not going to be brought into a negative light, but brought into something where it's more of a learning experience. And when we start to look at it that way, when we start to look at situations not as if we were a victim, but we have learned something new from our environment. Oh, we stepped over somebody's boundary, or we forgot to do something and we got penalized or whatever, right? When we look at it that way, then feeling that oppression, that depression that might happen to yourself, or what you put onto others, maybe in your relationships, which causes all sorts of disharmony and strife, well, that'll bring it back to an even playing field, right? There will be nothing, right? Your choices of how you interpret situations, events, are going to be the path for your future. And the culture that we have just been placed in does not help our own self-empowerment. All it does is it helps to run us through that process, that thought process of victimizing ourselves, whether externally blaming or internally guilt shaming. So we need to become aware of this, because this is our path to empowerment and to looking in the mirror and saying, I am in charge of how I respond to things, whatever it may be, whatever crisis may happen, whatever situation where you do have a fair definition that you were the victim. You can reframe that. You can reframe that to where you are in control, right? And even if you're not physically in control, well, you are emotionally in control. Your thoughts are in control, right? And as I've said in these other videos, that's not an easy thing to do. But the more we become aware of our thought patterns, the way we're thinking about things, and whether we are doing that blame or shame game, the more we'll be able to hijack it before it can do even more damage to our belief systems. Because remember, when I had talked about we turn on these things in our culture for our entertainment, right? Entertainment is mind control, right? If you break it down, I think in Latin, I don't even know if I really want to go into this, but it breaks down into some form of the literal meaning of mind control. Um, but you're entertaining your mind. Um, when you just turn on social media or the news or even a TV show, and how often does the drama in a TV show make out somebody to be a victim? So we don't want to be these things. We want to take responsibility for ourselves, our emotions, our thoughts, as well as our actions, even when we can't control them all the time. And a perfect example of this is what I just experienced the other day, where there was a big bill that had come back to me, and not only did they not take what I had paid for, they rejected it, and on top of that, they said, "Oh no, you owe stuff from last year," something that I had never even received a notification that there was another bill. So, because it was rejected, they added on fines to this thing, and I was fuming mad. I was really mad about it. And it kind of derailed my day a bit. And I became aware of the fact that it's like, I got to take a step back for a minute because this makes me really mad. I got to think about this a little bit differently. If I put myself into the perspective of the other person, they're just doing their job. It's not a personal attack on me. Yes, I might perceive it as it being unfair. However, I don't have to have a continual emotional response to it. And I need to just let the emotions, the anger around it, and wanting to blame to pass through, right? With all emotions, they will come and they will go, and we do not need to hold on to them. Sometimes we just need some space. We need some space alone or to meditate or whatever, to just let these things come and go, because they will. Everything will come to pass as far as the emotional realm. And yes, they might come up once and again, but when they do, let them just roll through you. But the realization that, or the remembrance that, hey, this is another person. They're just doing their job. Maybe I don't agree with what they're doing or how they're doing it, how they're handling it, and maybe they are handling it in a, purposeful way that's designed to, you know, get the most out of other people. But at the same time, they're still human, and maybe there's lessons that they need to learn. But the lesson that I need to learn from that is you just gotta let these things pass. You gotta let these things pass, and you'll find a way to take care of the bill and all of that. But at the same time, it's important to just remember these things, become conscious of these things, that once again, we're not the victim, right? And that we are in control of our interpretation of the events and the situations that happen to us. And when we look at it, when we look outside and start to see the patterns of the victimization that take place and that put us in this mindset that, oh, look what happened. Well, maybe you want to rethink whether you want to expose yourself to these things. Because once you start to recognize that there's an underlying pattern to the drama of the news and everything else, well, maybe you'll realize that you don't want to partake in that anymore, that you don't want to experience that frequency, those emotions, those thoughts, and you'll move towards something that is a little bit more empowering, a little bit more in control of yourself and your vessel. So I hope this might help, taking a look at the cult of victimization out there, and how we don't want to be involved in that, because all that does is disempower us, and our own goals and what we're trying to work towards and who we're trying to be as the best version of ourselves in this life. So once again, hope this helps. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. That'd mean a lot to me. Yeah, let me know of any situations that might have come up for you where you have had to fight off the victimization storyline. It'd be interesting to hear. So until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye.